All right, we're good. Um,
Good.
yeah. Let's pick right right up where we left off.
Well,
I
me
have an
calling you
issue.
a fat fuck.
I I I have an issue with communication with certain personalities. Um,
Mm.
and I don't know, like some of my guys, I say something and they're like, "Hey, yeah, all right, cool, that makes sense to me," and I'll explain it the exact same way, completely. I'm a pretty direct dude, and I say it to this population, they have no problem with it. I say it to another population, and they just want to defy me. Like Hogan, for example, right? Like if I say something to him, and he'll look at me, he'll be like, "Fuck you," and then we'll have to get in a wrestling match or like a fucking fight,
Mm.
in order for things to like almost sink in with him. Whereas other guys, I say it, and it's like, okay, that makes sense. I'm fine with it. Um, so you were just going into, the way that they're interpreting what I was saying. Go on with that.
Yeah, so I mean, like, why do people get offended by things? That's quite interesting to look at because, like I said, if I call you a fat fuck, you know you ain't a fat fuck, so you don't get upset about it. You could laugh about it, or you wouldn't. It wouldn't leave any lasting impression on you. But you say that to someone that's got a bit of an insecurity about it, or they half think it's true. Then, of course, they feel like their ego or their chimp part of their brain is getting attacked, and that's when they go on the defensive and think, "No, fuck you." What the fuck do you know? You know what I mean? And they end up sort of showing their cards, but in a different way rather than just accepting what it is. But it always comes, you're a confident guy, and like I said to you, you say what you say because you might be wrong, but you believe what you're saying, and that sense of like authority and confidence, probably with people that are sort of insecure, like they just they're more offended by it than they are what you're actually saying. And I think it's like what how you say something is more important to most people than what you say, right? And then and that's kind of the way I think it works. And even probably higher than that, then is like why you say it is even probably more important than how you say it or what you say. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and to me, it it just doesn't. It to me, all that matters is the information, not how the information necessarily is presented. So, I mean, when you and I are together, you're like the good cop, I'm the bad cop.
Mm.
Um, I I couldn't give two fucks if someone's offended by what I say because I'm just trying to give the information. Whereas
Mm.
people don't tend, and I offend a lot of people because I'm just so direct, I'm blunt. Whereas you people listen to you more so than they will to me, regardless whether your information is right or wrong. Like for some reason, you seem to present stuff in a way less threatening way to people than I do. So like what yeah, dude, it's fucking it from when you and I interact with the same people,
Yeah.
you're way softer with that stuff than I am. So I that's that's been an issue that I have with a few of my guys is my ability to communicate with them strictly because I don't I don't personally care if if the information, if it offends me or anything. Like if you call me a fat fuck, I happen to think that I'm a fat fuck, but it still doesn't offend me, right?
Mm.
Because I mean, facts are facts are facts are facts. So I don't care if it's true. If it's wrong, it still won't offend me. I need to get to the rationale behind why you feel that way, right? Like that's like the logical aspect of my brain trying to process things. I want to know the why.
Mm.
So if I'm giving information, I don't feel the need to sugarcoat it in any kind of way because all that matters is the information. I want to give you the pure hard data. Like, hey, that looked like shit. That wasn't bad. Okay, let's move on.
Mm.
Right. Whereas this is an issue that I have because there are certain personalities that I need to deal with that fucking hate listening to me. Like they just don't
Mm.
want to listen to me strictly because I'm such a dickhead. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if it's, I don't know. That trait of your personality is the biggest blessing and the biggest curse you've got, right? I think it's the same with a lot of things. And, you know, I don't know. I remember like the last time we were together and that, and I think we had a conversation. Like, I think you said to me, "Hey, what's one thing you think that I can do better with?" And I think, and I said the way you say things, because some people don't, they don't receive it. So the quality of what you're saying is they're so like they feel threatened by it because it's so direct. And I mean, that's not. There's no real person that's at fault. You know what I mean? It's just the way that some people are, like, you know, but some people love it. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I wouldn't say to you that you should really be changing it. I think you just understand what it is. You know what I mean? So, but I know that from my side, like, I don't know, it changes, because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I can just, maybe that's a different part of me, that you can just flip to different types of talking to different people. Whereas, you know, I think that you're very much blanket the same, no matter who it is, always the same. Whereas I know that I change the way I talk with different people, which can also be a good thing or a bad thing too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I don't know, man. It's an interesting, it's an interesting point. But
Yeah, because
I don't know.
our job as coaches is to be effective communicators, right? Whereas I also look at things to be as unbiased as possible. But so you just want to give the information, but if they're not understanding the information, or they don't want to be receptive to the information that you're giving them, like what fucking good is what you know if they can't understand it? So I need to twist the way I present certain things. But I mean, I also look at it from this perspective. I mean, it's almost like I am not responsible for how you want to interpret the information.
Yeah, of course you're not.
Because I mean, you could walk up to me and be like, "Yo, what's up, you fucking guinea?" And I'll be like, "Yo, what's good, cuz?" And someone that looks just like you, long hair, beard, fucking English accent, comes up to me and goes, "Oh, what's up, you fucking guinea?" And I'll look at him and say, "What the fuck you say to me?" But and he could have the same exact intent as you, like wants to be playful, like, you know, and
of course.
I took it a different way. And that's my perception of the situation. So how on earth, now, if I know someone, then I know I can suspect how they're going to interpret the data that I'm going to give them. So I need to twist the data in a way that they'll be receptive to it. But then again, I also don't want to have to skew data. But when we're coaching, we give cues that aren't necessarily, if they do them perfectly to what the cue was supposed to be, they wouldn't necessarily perform or execute the exercise correctly. But we're doing it in a way so they can execute it correctly. Does that make sense? Like, we tell them to over exaggerate a movement so they could actually perform the movement correctly.
Sure.
So I don't. Am I supposed to? Is that how I'm supposed to speak? Right, when I'm communicating with something, because then if I'm communicating to them in a way that is not what I said, rather than being concise and clear with what I said, now all of a sudden I'm giving mixed information, and rather than relaying the exact data, I'm relaying an interpretation of the data so they can understand it, but it's not. But then if we were to play back, they could go back and say, well, that's not what you said, but that's what I meant, but that's not what was said. Yeah. So that's my fucking problem right now, is I don't know. Like, I ruin, I don't want to say I ruin, but I rub a lot of people the wrong way, strictly because they don't appreciate or understand what I'm saying, because their own insecurities are getting in the way of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. But I mean, we're not, I mean, we think that we're always logical and stuff, but we ain't. Yeah. We're not all. You know, look how many smart people act like complete fucking idiots even when you say the word Trump or something. How many people are triggered by it? So, you know, we're a bunch of monkeys, man. We ain't, you know, I know exactly what you're saying. I definitely don't think that you should not give the right facts. That's not the point. Is you always say what you think, but you can change the way you say it. It's like, to some people, that's just not fucking good enough. You need to concentrate and, do better, or like stop being an idiot or something like that. And that might snap them out, and then they can concentrate. But that to that same person, to another person, that same communication might be something else. Or, dickhead, your knees are, your knees are collapsing inwards. Stop doing that. You look like a girl or something. You know what I mean? Like that might be like, boom, that snaps someone out. But to another person, that might be, yeah, man, listen, your knees keep falling and it ain't good. You're going to end up getting injured. We don't want to reinforce that pattern. Really concentrate on how to do it. If you want, we can take a step back, build it up, get used to it, and then we'll go back into the main exercise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're saying the same thing, but it's just two different ways of doing it. So, but I know that, like how because it's also important. If you stop being true to yourself and like just being in flow, because I think also coaching is quite a lot of flow, right? You're not really thinking much. You're just reacting and going along with it. If you try and change that part too much, you take yourself out of the presence of what you're doing with coaching. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's necessarily something that you should look at like it's urgent, you must change it, because I'm sure that most of your long-term clients love the fact that you're like that. And also, just because someone's offended, it don't mean that it's necessarily your fault.
Well, if someone's offended, it flat out is not my fault or anyone's fault, right? Like the fact that you're offended, again, has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me and my interpretation of the situation. Right. I genuinely believe that. Even if someone comes up to me and says, fuck you, if I'm offended, that has something to do with the way I interpreted that situation. Like, I have no idea what the hell happened with that guy that day. If I understood why that guy came up to me and said, fuck you, there's a good chance I wouldn't be offended.
Sure. It really depends what state you're in.
Yeah.
If you would have had a good morning, and, you had a good time with Cheeky, you go out of the house and you're super relaxed and everything's good. Someone cuts you up in the traffic, you might be like, you know what, fuck it. I don't give a monkeys. I ain't getting that, so, but mate, we're not logical, man. We ain't logical, bro.
Yeah.
Like and Brian monkeys, man.
And one of the worst, things to be is logical when everyone else is emotional.
Yeah.
Because then
Most people struggle the most.
Because then it serves no purpose.
Yeah.
Right. In negotiations, logic, hold on, I actually have notes on this. Logic is actually not useful because logic is only useful when everyone is on the same page. Right. So it's never, hey, 1 + 1 = 2. It's always, you always need to be able to bend with the wind. You need to be like the reeds that bend with the wind. Hold on, let me look this up.
Is that from the negotiator guy? What's he called, Chris?
No, it's not from him. I actually learned a lot about negotiations probably 6 years ago when I first opened a business, when I first had to start like learning about leases and bargaining back and forth and stuff. Cause I'm not a bargainer. If you tell me the price, I just, okay, hey, that's a price. That's, I own a business or I have a trade. I understand how it works. And I was never comfortable negotiating with people. But then you also saw me in the car dealerships about certain things. And I had a standard that needed to be set when I was buying my car. And if it wasn't set, like I just walk out and lose my mind. So there's 3 parts to every negotiation, or three parts to negotiating. It's logic, emotion, and reputation. Expect the unexpected. Reeds are not rigid. They bend. They don't break. Be tough to the cause. Be kind to the people. Facilitate progress. Cooperation and anticipated cooperation gives better results than logic. Logic is good in theory, but bad in negotiations. It's always a give and take relationship. So just because, like, logic is based on mathematics, right? Yeah. So they're based on proofs. So the equation needs to be balanced. That doesn't happen in fucking reality. In negotiations, there are no balance. There is no balance because everyone quantifies or values each aspect of the balance differently. Some people will value money. Some people will value being right. Some people will value, if everyone getting along. So we don't have the same quantifications, right? So to be logical in every situation is illogical. which fucking sucks for someone like me that worked so hard on being as logical as possible so I could be a good decision maker and be as objective as possible in situations, so I'd be able to understand the information and understand people as best I could. Meanwhile, by being more logical, being trending more on the scale of sociopathy, leaning more on that that aspect, it makes me insensitive and less empathetic, which is good for decision making. I happen to not like empathy. I think empathy is relatively dangerous, because by genuinely feeling what someone is feeling, like sympathy is understanding their situation, whereas empathy is genuinely feeling their situation.
Sure.
And by feeling that, allowing emotions to come in that changes your physiological state, that could change your heart rate, that could change your blood pressure, that could change the level of cortisol or adrenaline secreting through your blood. And by doing that, that changes your ability to go from the prefrontal cortex to more hypothalamus and amygdala, right? Or hypothalamus and amygdala. So you become more primal. So if we're if we want to be critical problem solvers, we want to be more prefrontal cortex. If we want to be reactionary and more primitive, then that's where we go to the amygdala and hypothalamus, right? So my job is to control my emotions so I could stay as logical and cognitive as possible. And that's why you don't want empathy setting in. This is my whole thought process with things, and people think I'm a fucking crazy. Like, people think I'm nuts for that.
Did I ever tell you about the difference between empathy and compassion? Did I ever tell you about that girl that I met who did a doctorate on? She looked at the neuroscience between what happens in the brain when you experience empathy versus compassion. So, like what you said, there is actually what you said is pretty much bang on. Empathy isn't necessarily bad in and of itself, but it's just that when you're very empathetic, you're looking as if you're looking through the same window as someone else into the pain that they're feeling. It means that you also feel it, which means that then you're not in a very good state to make decisions or to communicate or anything like that, right? It definitely does change. Of course, whatever the brain's state is, it's having, physiological effects coming down from it. Whereas compassion works on the other side. It works more on like the loving and kindness areas. So there is a big difference between it. But I don't know. I mean, look, I think that, we try to be logical. I mean, you too, I know you pretty well. And I think a lot of the time you can be logical, but you can also be very emotional too, man, just like everybody else.
Oh yeah.
Just like everybody else. And if you're not, if you're like, say, I don't know, let's say, for example, if you're having like a bad day, your communication is 100% different with everybody that's going on than if you're having a really good day. But that's just like basically everybody else, right? So I don't know. I don't know many people that are like really, 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 really logical people. I know a couple of them. Yeah, James. Yeah, sure. Yeah, he's the first one that comes to my mind if I think about someone like that. And he's just pretty much blanket always the same, which is, again, fantastic. I'm sure it has blessings and curses to it too, depending on whatever a relationship you might have with him. You know what I mean? So I think it must be fantastic, a way to be all the time. But I guess it also took work to be like this, so that, because everyone gets triggered. There's triggers that you pick up from, youth all the way up or whatever can happen. So, you have to be super... you have to be very sort of intuitive and understand yourself a lot, and start understanding what can trigger you in different things and set you off, and what makes you feel threatened or feel of abandonment or you know what I mean, like blah blah blah. So I don't know. I don't know many people, but I'm sure there's great parts to it, and I'm sure that there's also less easy parts. Some people probably might find it difficult to connect with someone like that too. Do you know what I mean? Which doesn't mean, it's good or bad thing. It's just probably just the reality of what it is. Just two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be super emotional, super emotional, where I mean, dude, I got in fist fights over foosball games. I mean, me and my best friend at the time, we would play foosball in his basement, and we literally got in a fucking fist fight. It was, I'll fucking call you tomorrow, and we'd leave, and that was just accepted. But so, I mean, that behavior, the fact that we didn't hold any grudges over it, it was fine. It was productive. It helped grow our relationship. I mean, to this day, if I talk to the kid, I mean, we'll talk about that and laugh. But later on, going on in life, I mean, you can't behave like that. You can't be so emotional. You need to, and now, I mean, I'm a very competitive person when I turn it on, but I don't turn it on because it doesn't suit me. Like if I'm playing something against one of my guys, it does not, it's not to my advantage to be emotional, because that will change my physiological state, and it'll change my cognitive behavior. So to me, it doesn't make sense to be emotional with things. And it was a lot of practice to be this unemotional, to be able to remove myself. I mean, even now, if I get pissed, I mean, you can't be near me. I tell people, no, don't talk to me.
I know.
Don't talk to me. I'm not fucking talking to anyone. Leave me alone. And if you don't leave me alone, I give a countdown. I'm like, dude, like I'm going to lose my shit. You got to chill. You got to chill. You got to chill. And I warn people, I overwarn people. And then once I set off, I fucking go ballistic.
Sure. So
Yeah,
and to be honest, it's something that is, I don't know. Sometimes it's just a shame when it happens, because it's a thing that has to pass. And sometimes you think, don't, just fucking drop it.
Well, let me read the other aspects of the negotiations. So it said, be tough to the cause, be kind to the people. Okay. Always.
That's an important point. Sorry, one quick. Be kind to the people.
Yeah.
Because most people, they only remember you for how you made them feel. They don't remember about much else.
Yep.
You know, and I think that's a key point. You know, like, you know, when you're talking with people, like say like to a kid, you know, unless you're an arsehole, you don't say to a kid, you know, you're a complete idiot. You know, you don't know nothing. You're completely worthless. You know what I mean? Like, unless you're an absolute arsehole. You know, but you know, and the reason why is, well, why, you know, you don't say it over and over again, because eventually the kid's just going to adopt that, right? Or the chance is higher, let's say. So, but there's not really that much difference between, you know, especially because you never know what the history of someone, what they've gone through, what sort of things have happened to, you know, I don't know. I think I mean, I do anyway. I mean, you know, I say very much what I think, but, you know, I try to say it in the way that it's at least going to be receptive in the best way. I mean, because you can always crank it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very hard to start off so strong and then work your way back, because you might have lost someone already. And, you know, this idea of, I don't know, I always think about that. Like, you know, people are only going to remember you for the way that you made them feel, not for anything else, really.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. I mean, if you just have nothing but positive interactions with someone, they're going to associate being with you with being positive, like some kind of positive. There's going to be a positive association with it. That's all there is to it. How you make them feel. Yep.
Exactly. So.
Number 3, always act, never react. Don't get defensive. Don't lose focus. Always stay calm and reposition yourself, continuing towards your target. Reputation is the gap between expectations and experience. Reputation is a long-term investment with compounding effect. More reputation leads to more reputation.
Yep.
If you speak to a man in a language he understands, you speak to his head. If you speak to him in his language, you speak to his heart. That was Nelson Mandela.
Yep.
You know, so I always want to speak to someone's head, and unfortunately, not everyone speaks logic. I need to learn as a coach and as a human. I need to learn how to speak to someone's heart if I want to win them over, and I'm just incapable of fucking doing that.
I disagree.
Well, you're really good at resonating with people. Maybe it's your accent, maybe it's your tone, maybe I don't I don't fucking know what it is, but when you speak, people love hearing what you have to say. A certain
Depends.
group of what's that?
Depends.
Okay, give me a situation where people don't like hearing what you have to say, because everyone. I mean, when you talk, again, maybe it's the whole now, doctor towards psychology sort of thing, and they'll take what you have to say now. But I mean, later, even earlier on, people would listen to you. They had no problem hearing what you had to say.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I wouldn't say I can't really give you some examples off the top of my head where I feel like I've been sort of, you know, like repeatedly treated unfairly or something like that. I don't believe that to be true. But yeah, I think it just depends, mate. I mean, you don't know. I mean, me and you could be listening to the same thing, and I could be having one experience, and you could be having a completely other experience. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
So, and I don't know. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I just remember like my dad saying, like, from when I was really young, that I could have a conversation with a full grown adult, and I could talk to anybody, and that was just the way that I was from when I was younger, you know. But then that had, there's consequences of that too. Do you know what I mean? Like you say, like, if that's a good blessing, your communication, you understand how this can have a big impact on people. Sometimes also then, when I was younger, I also sometimes wouldn't say, the I would sort of soften down certain things, to people, because you would know that that's going to really upset them, because you can just know. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe you don't know, but
oh,
you think you know.
well, see the difference between.
Yeah, whereas you just go full blown and just like rip them to pieces. You know what I mean? Whereas I'll be, my natural instinct, and I think it's something that I worked on. You just blow them to bits, So that's why it was worked good with between the two of us. That's why we were really good combo together. So, but
Right.
it's something, probably something in the middle is spot on.
Yeah.
It's probably spot on. So, because I know it's something that I've definitely, over the last few years, really, that's why it's changed. That's why I also would say to you, it's not, I feel like I could get on well with anybody if I wanted to.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I could really get on well with anybody, and wherever I've been in the world, I've always seemed to make friends, and doesn't matter if we've got nothing in common. I think that we can sit there and we can at least enjoy each other's company, and I know that to be true. But yeah, like over the last few years, I don't know. I don't know, less worried about how other people are perceiving things, because you start to realize that you have no idea how you might say the nicest thing to them, and what you think is really could help them out. And I know that it's also happened to me. I've had people say things to me that they want it to be a good thing for you, but you take it the wrong way. So then you start to think, hang on a second, why the fuck do we, I don't know how they're going to take it. So I'll say it in the way I think it's the best way, but don't soften the blow so much. You know what I mean? Because there's also an art in giving something, just that perfect weight to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's what I really look for, especially with communication and the relationship between, like, this sort of, a lot of people call it a therapeutic relationship, but I think that exists in coaching too. This relationship you have between the two of you, trying to get that just spot on, I think is one of the best investments that you can do, with this, with your clients. You know what I mean? You don't want to be losing clients. You want to build up through years and be a small part of the journey for however long it lasts. And, one of the ways you can do that is you can do a lot of good stuff by just, being a good communicator with them, and actually listening to understand rather than just listening to respond. Like, yeah, well, I know what's going on. I fucking know what to do. I know, like, how many idiots are there out there like that? And the reality is that, everything's up and ready to be disproven. So, yeah.
So how would you approach a conversation with someone that isn't stable, but that the path that they're on is a poor path? I was talking about this with Devin McCourty the other day, where we were talking about personal issues that we have with people in our lives, and you just know. I mean, because Devin just does so much to try to help as many people as he can. He really
Yeah,
does.
he's a saint, that guy. Yeah.
Dude, he's phenomenal. And it's, how do you present information to someone in a way that will be unoffensive, but in a way that will help them realize, hey, it's like your buddy that's got the girlfriend that's cheating on him. No matter what you
Mm,
tell him, she ain't cheating on him until he finds it for himself, right? How do you
sure.
help someone come to the realization quicker? Can you help someone come to the realization quicker that they're not on the right path
Mm,
and that they need to get their shit together? I mean, we both of us have, I'm as you do too, have people in our lives that just are, they're just doing it inefficiently, and there's a better way to go about it, and if they just do X, Y, and Z, things will get significantly better. And you tell that to them, and they either A, don't want to hear it, or B, yeah, I hear you, but I ain't fucking doing it, or
yeah.
C, like, I can't do it. Meantime,
Yeah.
it's really that easy that, yeah, sure you can. How do you, and it's not motivation, right? Because motivation
It
fades.
goes quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is it, right? How do you help someone come to the realization? Is it the Socratic method, where you constantly ask questions until they come up with the answers? What if they have
Yeah.
the answer and then they're like, yeah, I just still ain't fucking doing it?
Sure. Well, I mean, I don't think you don't change people, they change themselves. And first of all, they need to be open to even have the conversation, first of all. And then, I mean, one of the good ways, and I mean, even like sales techniques, like what you were saying about negotiation, like there's ways that they use techniques of this. And you got a couple different ones. That there's like this thing called like the spin model, and that's how a lot of people use to negotiate. I'm not sure if you know about this one, but you understand the situation that someone's going through, you understand the problems involved with the situation, then you look at the implications of it. So what are the long-term consequences of these problems continuing? And then usually people get to the point where they say like they need to make a change. But one of the best ways of doing it is, not trying to change people anyway, almost being sort of separate from it, because you ain't, one of the biggest issues you can have is when you just constantly so involved and so empathetic that you're sort of living all of these people's problems all the time. Like, you got to stay separate, and you got to focus on your own life, and you got to be happy doing your own thing, right? But you could say with different people, I like to use a thing called it's called like an ABC model. It's from Albert Ellis, who's like one of the top psychologists ever. He used to be psychoanalyst and then went into sort of CBT, and he's a huge influence from Stoicism. He's a legend of a dude. There's some really funny videos of him, old dude, like just talking shit super straight. But he has this ABC model, which is affect, behavior, and cognitions. So if you say to certain people, right, like, what's really the issue, and they say, oh well, whatever, you can start anywhere. They have thoughts they don't like, or they have feelings they don't like, or they have behaviors they don't like. All three of those things are very much interlinked with each other. And you could just start, okay, so that happens, then what happens, and how then does that make you feel, and how does that make you think, and what implications does that have, and then what's the consequences of that? And you'll just see this sort of loop, this sort of negative loop or a positive loop, right? And you just start saying to it, I mean, if this continues, what is the projected outcome of it? I mean, because the future is only sort of made up from what's going on right now. Like, if you care about the future, you need to focus on what you're doing right now. The future, you write it right in this present moment, right? So, like, for example, I'm not going to become I don't know, some cokehead because I don't take no cocaine. You know what I mean? So it's just not gonna happen right now. So at least I can eliminate that to some sort of certain extent, right? So with other people, if they understand the consequences of these sort of loops, that can have a big impact on them. Like, because some people can stop smoking pretty much one day to the next, because they might hear the thing that really scares them, or they come to some level of understanding that this is just not, in 5 years from now, this can't keep going, because at the minute it's just getting so bad, and in 5 years it just petrifies me. So that understanding is enough. You know what I mean? But motivation, man, motivation's the worst thing to rely on, because that's like fucking, it's like the wind, it's going all over the place, you know? So, but yeah, I don't know. Looking at understanding this cycle of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and then like the implications of that going forward. You know, I think that's pretty big for most people. And I think that most of the models people use have some variation of that anyway.
So knowing that it's that cycle of thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and it's never the chicken or the egg, right? Like the behaviors influence the thoughts influence the feelings influence the behaviors,
Sure.
and it just keeps going. Doesn't matter where you go in the cycle.
Sure.
So do you try to impact 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3? How do you change that cycle, or how do you impact that cycle?
Well, the only thing that instantly changes the way you think and feel is your behavior. So say, for example, people really don't like bad thoughts, but thoughts are just, you know, unwanted thought is like the biggest pain for most people. It's like, why am I thinking this? I must have something wrong with me. Why, you know, and they just so caught up in their own head. The way people feel, people think that that's also really important to them. And of course, it's not nice to feel really, really bad all the time, but I think there's too much weight that goes on those, because the behavior is really the secret to it, in my opinion, anyway. Because how many times have you had guys, you know, you wake up, let's say, for example, in training, you wake up in the morning, you don't want to train. You do not want to train. You do not want to get out of bed. You're thinking, if I go and train, I'm going to have a bad session. I might get injured. You know, I don't want to do this right now. It's not smart, blah, 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 blah. Your feelings will start very much, you know, going into that too. Like, I feel a bit sick. You know, I've got low energy. You know, I'm not going to do good. I'm not going to perform well, blah, blah, blah. And that sort of goes. Now, if your behavior is you don't go training in the morning when you know you should be going, those thoughts will instantly change to, you know, you motherfucker, you didn't go, you're a failure. The whole day's ruined now. You know, you're never going to get to where you want to go. You know what I mean? It's the ideas. The feelings will get worse, and then the behaviors will be, you know, that'll be a day where, you know, the chance of sort of repeated bad behavior, sort of behavior that's not going towards goals and values, and it's going more to distress and diversion. That's where that starts to happen. So what happens if you think and feel that way, and then you do go training, is instantly you feel usually a lot better, and you think a bit better, and you have this sort of different sense of how you feel. But the behavior is the key. And for me, at the end of the night, before you go to bed, you don't really care how you felt throughout the day. You just care about what you did. And that might be wrong, but that's my sort of interpretation of it. Is, you know, we're the product of what we do over and over and over again. And, you know, this sort of huge emphasis on, oh, I need to be happy, I need to feel good, you know, then you're like a whore, like a crack addict for just these short feelings, you know. And it's the behaviors that they really create the path for the future. And, you know, people that are very anxious, there's, you know, or they have a lot of fear. I mean, I can't remember who I heard this off of, but fear, like the acronym is false expectations appearing real. Like, they're not looking forward. The future doesn't look good, because if they just keep repeating these behaviors, the future can't possibly be good, right? Like, how many times people that feel very scared and anxious, they just lock themselves away. They stop doing the things that make them feel bad, feel anxious. But really the best thing to do would be just to go through it almost. You know what I mean? Yeah. Again, not 100% of the time it's like that, but a lot of the time it is. You have to conquer it. You have to go through the thing that's bothering you. So I would say behavior is the key.
So how do you influence someone's behavior then? Right.
Well, again, understanding. So say, I don't know, let's say, you know, I don't know. Not
so
really
here,
let we work with. Give us an example.
So perfect. I have 2 examples for you. Cool. One example is me personally. Right. I get anxiety. And I know, and one of the things that actually helped me with my anxiety was identifying one of the triggers. So diet is a big trigger for my anxiety.
Sure.
I know that if, first off, I fucking love fresh mozzarella, right? How you doing? How you doing? Fresh mutz, right? That's like my favorite thing. I can legitimately sit down and eat 3 pounds of fresh mutz. No problem. No problem whatsoever. I love bread. I'll dip bread in olive oil. I'll cover it in cheese and who doesn't fucking love bread? I can eat I have potato bread in my pantry right now. I can eat bread and butter. I could eat the whole fucking bag of potato bread and butter, no problem. Probably I could probably eat 3 or 4 bags today and be perfectly happy with that. However, I noticed when my anxiety was bad, I was trying to find ways to mitigate my anxiety.
Mm.
And everything I was reading, oh, it's in your head, it's in your head. There's some, okay, well, stop thinking this. Well, there's a reason why I was thinking and feeling a certain way.
Mm.
And the physiological aspect was influencing the psychological aspect.
Mm.
So the behavior, the physical, was influencing the feeling or the thought, the psychological. And I know that when I'm uncomfortable, I can get anxious. So if I eat 2 pounds of mutts, it's going to bind me up.
Mm.
I'm going to be constipated from that. Who wouldn't be? Right? So it's going to bind you up. It's going to make you uncomfortable. Well, I noticed that when I was feasting on mutts, I'd get anxious.
Mm.
Okay, awesome. So now I know you just can't have that much mutts. Or if you do, just know you're going to be anxious later on. And if you could identify it, it's like, oh, okay, this is why I'm anxious. There's nothing else going on. All right, I can deal with the fucking anxiety now. One of the things that fucks me is when I don't know why I'm anxious, right? If you don't know why you're anxious, then it just spitballs and it spirals out of control. So another thing with bread, right? Or other things that with gluten in it. Gluten causes some GI distress for me. Do I have celiacs? No. Am I gluten intolerant? I'm maybe a little sensitive to it. Whatever it is, the products that contain gluten, those products typically cause GI distress with me that I'm relatively unaware of. It's not like I'm shitting my pants or anything. It doesn't even constipate me, but it's causing enough GI distress where it causes a physiological response that leads to anxiety, right? So that's my behavior influencing me eating, me stuffing my fucking face like a fat guinea, influencing my thoughts and my feelings.
Sure.
Right? Whereas I know there's certain people that if they are sedentary, in acupuncture, sedentary behavior leads to stagnation. Okay, so people that are stagnant, when there's stagnation, chi stagnation or blood stagnation, there's a buildup of heat. And if there's a buildup of heat, it can burn out some things and cause some wind. And so what the stagnation will do, it will cause excess buildup of energy in one little area that you can't do anything about, and it could cause some anxiety, right? So what's good for someone with stagnation? Movement, any kind of movement whatsoever. So you get someone that's depressed or they're anxious or they have anything going on because of sedentary behavior, you got to get them moving. Well, how do you motivate someone to move when they don't feel like fucking moving because they're depressed? I mean, think about it like this. All the people you know that are depressed, I shouldn't say so all, absolutely not all, but a lot of people that you know are depressed, if you get them outside and walking outside for 20 minutes without their fucking cell phone, they go out for a walk, no problem. Hey, hey, let's have a talk, or let's just be outside. And they come back in and they feel better. How many of them don't feel better after going for a walk? Very few. Most people I know that are depressed, when I have kids that are depressed, even kids that are suffering from bipolar, where they're manic and they're depressed and they're up and they're down and they're all over the place, even them going outside and going for a walk for 20 minutes with little stimulation outside of being in nature, they come back in like, holy fuck, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
Right? But that's the behavior influencing the thoughts and the feelings right there. But how do you get that to go on repeat? Because knowing the answer is, well, all I got to do is go for a walk and I'll feel better. I just don't feel like going for a walk. Fuck it. I'm not going for a walk.
Sure.
Right? How can we have more, or how do you have more of an impact on people like that? With me, I don't know what the fuck to say. It's like, all right, well, I gave you the answers. You just don't want to lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink it. How do we influence them to want to drink?
Yeah, I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's really our job though, if I'm going to be completely honest, because otherwise you just, so not many people actually, like, they'll know everything that they should stop. Like, how many people do you know, have you said to them, listen, what is one thing, one little thing that you know that you should stop doing or you should start doing, which would significantly impact your life? You know, a lot of people bullshitting you if they can't give you a couple, right? They still don't do it. You know, so, you know, man, it really depends on the person, man. This is like getting in deep, but a lot of people, you know, like they know what they need to do, but they just don't want to do it. And, you know, like, you know, there was an artist now, I can't remember who said that, you know, this feeling of sort of like manic depression. And I mean, not many people have manic depression, like serious, you know, hardcore depression is like clinical grade, right? But he said that, you know, that form of depression is so bad that if there was a gun on the table, he couldn't even be bothered to go and pick it up and blow his head off, right? So, you know, it's hard to know, like, you know, because also like depression and anxiety and, you know, these words are so like, they're like such strong trigger words now, but these are just ranges of experience. Like not all anxiety is the same. Like also this difference between anxiety and excitement, you know, that it also depends on perspective. And, you know, man, it's so hard to say, but I would say like, you know, at some point, you know, you can't, I don't know, you can't be too connected to the fact that if you've shown them what to do and they've said themselves, this makes me feel better. And if I keep doing this, I know that my chances of feeling bad, you know, are smaller. It would open up more doors. It would be a positive direction for me to take, but they still don't do it. I mean, you can give them whatever you want, like accountability, exercises. You can be checking up on them. You can be telling them to come and live with you for a while. But eventually, at some point, you can't just, I don't know. I don't think my job is to save people. Do you know what I mean? And I think that that's where I don't know, maybe that's also just a bit harsh, but it's not you know, people can come and ask for advice and I can give you the best thing that I think that I know at this time. But at the same time, it's, you know, everybody's living on their own life. You know what I mean? Like how many people also, you know, they sort of figure things out themselves, because at the end of the day, it just comes to understanding. You could say the same thing over and over and over again to people, but until they understand it in their own head, they might not change. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know, bro. It's hard, you know. People are fucking weird, man. People are weird. You know, I've had it. People said, you know, like I know, like I just, you know, this triggers, then this, then this, then this, then this, then this, you know, and well, don't do it. It doesn't look good. If you keep doing it over, well, I don't know, but something like there's something in me that's that is more important. And, you know, you can even start to, you know, when you start looking at the sort of future projections with things, you know, there's two sort of avenues you can almost kind of take. And one of them is, you know, this sort of short-term pleasure, which, you know, a lot of the time can lead to long-term punishment, right? So sort of, you know, I don't want to go train today. I don't feel like training. It'll make me feel better if I don't go training right now. Don't go training. Maybe you feel better for what? All of 10 seconds, 30 seconds before that fucking monkey mind flips on you and starts, you know, hating on you pretty quick. Long-term, probably not good, especially if that's really important for you in terms of goals and values of where you want to go. Then the other one is sort of short-term sacrifice can lead to sort of long-term pleasure and reward, depending on it depends what it is, right? But it can go in that way. So people just got to make a decision, and people also got to understand that they're in charge of their life. They're in charge of, you know, they should take full responsibility for how they feel, you know, and also coming to the acceptance of, you know, like when you said about, you know, people, like when I get really anxious, I mean, all right, yeah, you're really anxious, but, you know, you're anxious, you know, is it that big? You know, it's going to pass. It passed every time beforehand. It's going to pass again. You know, I know it's not nice to feel bad. I ain't saying it's good that you got to feel bad, but at the same time, why does it matter? You know what I mean? Like if you know it's going to pass, you know, but say if you don't know why it happened, well, you didn't know why you had it before, but you figured it out. And if I kind of look into it, maybe I'm going to learn something about myself that's going to significantly improve it and stop this from happening again. You know, it gives you an opportunity for that. I don't know. Is it that important? I don't know. I don't know any of these answers to things, but it's just perspective on looking at it. But people really care how they feel when they're really stuck in this. I need to feel good. I need to feel good. I need to feel good. I need to feel happy. I need to be happy. Why am I not happy? You know, it makes things really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes back to the up and down, you know, we're in constant search of the next buzz,
Yeah.
right? We're if we're not feeling great, we think there's something wrong. If we're not feeling happy, we think there's
Yeah.
something wrong, which will lead to us feeling worse. Um, there's a psychologist. He's a researcher. He's the leading researcher. Well, I shouldn't even say he is now. 10 years ago, or, geez, how long ago? 6 years ago, when I was going through my divorce, he was the leading researcher in relationships. His name was, I think, Dr. Gottman, and essentially, all the research that he had found was that the most successful relationships are the least passionate, and by success, the longest lasting. It was his measure of success, were essentially the least passionate. So with great passion, right, that's great emotion. With great ups, there's great downs. With great peaks, there's great valleys. So essentially, the ones that were little flat lines, and they're just, hey, we're there, we're here for each other, it is what it is. Like, they weren't overly in love, they weren't overly hateful towards each other, because people that are super super in love are the people that fall super super out of love, and they think that there's something wrong because they're constantly chasing that feeling rather than just understanding in their eyes that this is just a commitment and it's a long-term plan and we're going to be here in the middle. So in any relationship, the less up you are means the less down you are. Now, I talked to James about that, and he actually disagreed with me in a sense that you don't want to limit how happy you are.
No, not at
Right?
all. Yeah.
Because well, I mean, there's ways. He said what you can look at it is, rather than thinking you're this happy, which means I'm going to be infinitely that sad, or not infinitely, but relatively that sad. If I'm a 10 on the happy scale, that means I can be a 10 on the unhappy scale, or the miserable or the sad scale. What it could lead to is a rising tide raises all ships. So you find a way to get as happy as possible, and then your lows, it could still be that same ratio of difference, but it's
Yes.
just raising it up that much
Yes.
more, which was an interesting perspective that I'd had. I hadn't I hadn't thought of it like that before. Rather than being like, hey, let's be as chilled out as possible. Well, if we find ways to perpetuate the happiness while mitigating the symptoms for sadness or misery or anger, right? That's obviously that's the goal, but that's a really tough fucking thing to do. But it was an interesting thought that he had shed to me.
Yeah, man. That's great. I mean, I also like to, I've said before and put it in the description of like a mountain, like a lot of people, they don't even allow themselves to be happy because they're like, oh my God, if I'm happy now, that means that I'm going to go down. And they're paving it already. They're not even experiencing the moment of goodness because they're already like, I'm going to start going down. You know what I mean? But that's a great analogy. And we should definitely get James on it. I'd love to speak to him again. I spoke to him in years, and I'm sure he'd have a lot of good things to say.
Well,
So
I'll tell you what, if we get James on here, you and I won't be talking very much.
no, but good. We're going to learn some things. That'll be good. That'll be
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have some questions prepared for him for sure. So, but it's a good point. But I mean, bro, I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong with this, but I also think, the best moments in your life, they appeared, they peaked, they passed away. The worst moments in your life, they peaked, they passed away. The best moments in your life, what the fuck, they didn't help, don't necessarily always help right now. Like how many athletes have you worked with that have done the best? Okay, but you're still struggling right now. You know what I mean? I think just, I don't know. I just see it all like just almost like a river, and it's just constantly moving. And all right, we're here now, and we're going to just, focused on sort of going in picking behaviors and going in the direction towards like the goals and values of what I have, and just understanding that you know, the life's like, you know, the weather, you know, it's like, I don't know, I'll use another analogy too. Like, imagine you're in a sort of a boat in the middle of the ocean. You don't know really where you want to go. So you're just bobbing. You can't see nothing on the horizon. And this is why a lot of people, you know, I had a lot of people come to me and say, I'm lost. I just don't know where I want to go, what I want to do, who I am, just lost. That was the best word to summarize it, right? And then if you're there in the middle of the ocean, you've got currents pulling you. So even if you've got the sails up, you're moving a lot, right? So all the different things that happen in nature. Sometimes the weather's good, sometimes the weather's bad. So it don't matter, right? You're just getting hit on. As soon as you make the decision of kind of where you want to go, you can put the sails up and you can use the same power that was sort of moving you along anyway. Like so many people just sort of drifting along and seeing what sort of.
Don't let me interrupt you real quick, but your mic is all jacked up again.
Hang on, I'll let me do it. What about now?
Better.
Good. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. I'm not even touching it.
Nah, it happens.
Oh well, fuck it. So yeah, as soon as you make the decision of kind of the place where you want to go, you can put the sails up and you can harness the same energy. So even those storms before that were coming in and those bad moments that were really, they just shitting down on you, you can harness the power of it and you can sort of ride through it, because at least you're going to somewhere, and on that journey, at least you're moving. You know, like the worst is when you're not, you know what I mean? Like you shut away, you're not feeling good. Your behaviors are, even if they're just short term, maybe if they're just adding down. And that's when people really lose, have this sort of sense of despair. You know, they lose hope. And that's like the saddest thing for people, when they got no hope, they got nothing to look forward to. That's really quite sad, because, you know, I don't know. The game's not done until you're dead. And that's like the number one rule of life, right? Just don't die. It's going to change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. All thought experiments, man. It's interesting. It's interesting. And like the way different people perceive life it's pretty unique, especially the sort of people that we work with, you know? And that's why I think also I do the work, because I find it quite interesting to talk to people about, you know, the philosophy of life that they have. I think it's quite interesting.
Well, yeah, absolutely. The whole bobbing in the ocean idea, you know, you just feel helpless in a situation like that. You know, and that's almost a mindfulness practice, right? Like rather than just kicking and trying to paddle and go to a direction, rather than letting the current take you where it wants to take you, right? So in mindfulness, you sit down and you just observe the current, right? Whereas someone like me, or anyone really, is just sitting there trying to paddle and anxiously paddling. What you don't even realize is you're just going in circles and going in circles.
Yeah.
Whereas you could just sit back and pay attention and just start observing things and know where the current is, and then you could start paddling yourself in that direction. Does that make sense? Was that like off tangent or off topic at all?
No, bro. I mean, there's many ways of, I mean, it's, you know, meditation and mindfulness and all these other buzzwords and techniques. There's many variations of them, but one of the good things with mindfulness-based practices is this cognitive diffusion, where you just let things happen. You let these thoughts happen, right? So, you know, there's like a very common practice with a river. And, you know, your thoughts are like leaves on a stream. It's called leaves on a stream exercise, where they come up in your field of awareness, they pass and they go away. And you just sit there and you try to just imagine you're just looking at them, not experiencing them yourself. And that can be very helpful to people. It's the same as then when they can shift their attention. You know, it's a lot of the time it's escape from the mind that people find really quite beneficial. And, you know, meditation, a lot of people have different ideas of it. I heard a Buddhist guy called Ajahn Brahm give probably the best definition of what he thought meditation was. And he was like, you know, meditation's like, your mind is like the water inside of a cup. And no matter how hard I try and hold that cup still, it's never perfectly still. The mind's not still. So all I have to do is I have to put it down on the table and just leave it alone. And that was something that I found quite interesting as a definition of what meditation is. But dude, what's dance, man? What's playing music for people? You know, this the escape of all the, you know, this cognitive process that's going on, and it's just going into this sort of feeling flow state. And I think that that's really the place that a lot of people are looking for.
Go into the leaves on the string thing. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so it's called cognitive diffusion. So it just means that you're sort of like, you know, you're separated from your thoughts. So the way the drill that you do is you can guide people with it through your voice, or you can just also sit there yourself. You can just imagine that you're sitting there in front of a river, and there's just leaves going on a stream, and the leaves are thoughts. And as a thought pops up, you just let it pass away, and you just sit there, and you just imagine that things are just coming into your field of awareness and just leaving, and then you just sit there. You don't get attached into it. And if you lose track with it, then you just come back. It's really good to be done like with someone else that can sort of, you know, then they can even mention certain hot words, for example, like something that might stress you out, and then kickstart a bunch of thoughts. You know what I mean? And you just sort of learn to sit there and just see it, let it go away. See it, let it go away. See it, let it go away. I mean, thoughts, they go on a curve. They're on a wave curve, and a lot of the time, thoughts make people feel really bad because, you know, all right, I mean, unless you know, I know that the thoughts are not real for me. Like if I'm at the train station, or I was at the train station, right? I use this all the time. I was at the train station, and when a train didn't stop, it went straight past, as they do sometimes, right? It doesn't stop at this station. And my thought was, if someone pushed me or I fell over in front of this train, I'd be dead. Now, does that mean that I want to kill myself? What do you think? I mean, I don't think it means that I want to kill myself. It's just a thought, right? So, but other people might be like, well, hang on, why the fuck am I thinking that? That's a pretty sad thing. Do I want to kill myself? Why would I want to kill myself? Oh, well, fuck, this thing I'm really not happy with, and this person, this, and this happened before, and maybe this is still bothering me deep inside. Maybe I'm still broken or cursed with this thing. You know what I mean? So that can go on and on quite quick. But if you see thoughts as this sort of wave curve, and you sit there with the same thought, like something that's really, really bothering someone, if you sit there and say, right, we're only going to think about this, and we're going to keep going on about it, you're able to sometimes ride the wave of the thought so it can pass away. But a lot of the time, like I said, thoughts make people feel bad. So they never get to the top. They never get to the peak of it to ride it back down. So they'll go up. They'll be like, oh, I don't like this thought. So then they'll jump to another thought. Then they'll jump to another one and jump. You know what I mean? And that, you know, like a lot of people, you know, they go into this state where their brain is just fucking full of all this nasty thoughts. And it's just, rather than just sort of sit there and just let it all pass away. But again, that's one it's a technique.
So how would you ride the wave of a thought to its completion then? Right? Because if I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, all right, well, if I just jump in front of the train right now, then I die. That doesn't mean that I want to kill myself. But for the person that says, and they start introspectively looking into that, how do they finish that thought to completion then? I don't understand.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think it's easier to do it when you're working with someone through it, because then, you know, it's easier to sort of, someone can keep you on track with it rather than you sort of jump off. But if you had the thought of, oh, if I fall in front of the train, I might kill myself, then you could just, well, if I fall in front of the train, I could kill myself. Yes, true, I could kill myself. You know what I mean? But you'll start to process it and narrate it in almost a different way, and you'll actually find that you get bored of it. Like if you keep going over it, you know, like, you know, there's another technique that there is, I can't remember the name of it now, but, you know, if someone has a really funny thought, like, I don't know, like, you know, I don't know, I'm so ugly or something like that. And you get them to say it over and over and over again, really, really, really fast. I'm so ugly, I'm so ugly, I'm so ugly, I'm so ugly, I'm so ugly.
It loses meaning.
It loses meaning. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they'll start laughing. And then all of a sudden they're like, actually, you know, I mean, look, these are all techniques, you know, they're just sort of like painkillers on it. And I think that the understanding of the way that our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors work, and basic psychoeducation, that can be really the antibiotic for a lot of people when they go forward. So
I I struggle with knowing or understanding what's effective, most effective, least effective, in regards to inoculation. Like, or are we looking for inoculation, or are we looking for a remedy? Right. Whereas the difference between the two is a remedy will cure you of the illness, whereas inoculation is constant exposure at low doses to the illness so it stops being an issue, right? So, um, are we looking to identify, and in order to find a remedy, you need to find the cause, right? You need to figure out what the root issue is, and then you could counteract it with whatever. Like, why do I have anxiety? Does it matter why I have anxiety? To some, it could. To the remedy, it matters if you have anxiety. But to inoculation, it doesn't matter. All that matters is almost constant exposure, so it reduces the impact that the anxiety could possibly have. So I looked at it. One of the ways that helped me a lot was almost the inoculation, where I thought that, all right, well, every single time I looked at it from like the stress resiliency standpoint, right? Like everything I do is progressive overload. So whenever I got anxious, not in the beginning, but towards once I started figuring out a way to like handle it and then overcome it and conquer it,
yeah.
whenever I got anxious, I looked at it, I was like, fuck, this is good. This is good, because the more exposure I have to this motherfucker, the stronger I'm going to get, because I just keep building up. It's like the sandpaper, right? Like you keep sanding, you could keep sanding my hand down, but my calluses are gonna grow fucking over that shit, right? Like you might get me raw at first, but then eventually I'm just gonna callus, and
Sure.
I'm become a tough motherfucker from this. So like towards the end, I almost looked forward to the anxiety, right? But that's the inoculation, right? Like you could give me as much fucking snake poison as you want. This motherfucker isn't killing me,
Sure. But
right?
it's because you come to the understanding too, though, right? It's not going to kill me. It's going to pass.
Mm-hmm.
You can mold it. You know, your perception of it changed before. And, as we know, when, back then, you didn't like the anxiety. It's like, why have I got this again? Fuck again, and that can be it's not the thing itself, it's the way that you're judging it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It's
And
perception.
perception again. It's perception again. I mean, I don't know. Is anxiety such a bad? I mean, I'm not. It depends again with everybody, right? But okay, you don't feel good right now. Well, why not? What's stopping you from not feeling good? Well, this and that. Well, I understand. I wouldn't feel good either if that was going on in my life either. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what do you want me to do? Say to you one word and then all of a sudden you never feel sad again? I mean, even if that was possible, you wouldn't want it.
Well, so I disagree, right? Where you and I don't want that, right? But the people that are suffering, that aren't resilient, they want the pill. But the problem with the pill, the problem with the remedy, like if you just take this, you don't have to worry about it again. What happens when that runs out? What happens when it ends up strengthening the issue, or strengthening the disease or the ailment, to the point where now you can't take enough of the remedy in order to do it. So it's like almost as if inoculation is the only thing that will help you.
Yeah, and it's a very philosophical way of looking at psychology, man. It's, you look into Stoicism, there's a lot of that based. I mean, look at what, some different, pharmaceutical interventions can do. It can sort of stop you from feeling really sad, but it can also stop you from feeling really happy. And you just sort of want this mid baseline where it's like just, you know what I mean? So I don't know. Why is it a problem to feel sad? Your fucking mum's dead. You feel sad. You know, it's all right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I also look at I also look at the other end of that, like, well, I I don't want to feel sad. Like, I
Mm,
don't, there's no need. What good does it do me to feel sad? To feel, could I understand that this person isn't here anymore, and that, yeah, that's upsetting, and I wish that person was here. Well,
mm,
but what good is that doing? Nostalgia, what good is that doing to me? How is
mm,
this serving me?
mm,
Right?
mm, mm,
Happiness serves me, right? It'll help, add a little pep to my step. It'll make my day that much better. The sky will be that much more blue.
mm,
But sadness, I don't know. Unless the sadness is part of your trade, or part of your daily life, where the sadness becomes your performance enhancer, right? Your
mm.
ergogenic aid, whatever the hell it is. Then it serves you. But if you can't figure out a purpose for that feeling, then it no longer serves you. Then I don't think you should be feeling it. Like, if it slows your ability to progress, or in some way, I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean,
But then it could be the necessary deload, right?
yeah, and also, you know, I don't know if you pick the way you feel, right? Like you get the phone call, hey, your mum's dead. Okay, you know, like you say, okay, I'm going to be 10% sad and 90% happy. I don't know if it's like that. I think it's just it will arise. There's a sort of like this, like this, this emotional override. Probably, I mean, some people not. Probably some people, want their fucking mum to die. I don't know. There's probably some people out there that do it, right? So, on this context of what we're saying, it happens, but just embrace it. It's going to pass. It's normal. Of course you are, but everyone's going to die, and then you sort of get over it. But it's the sort of lack of acceptance of the feeling can also be one of the problems that can stop you understanding that cycle. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes. Like, why it's occurring, right? See,
Yeah.
and my I always say, man with a hammer, everything becomes a nail.
Mm,
My hammer is physiology. I think majority of our issues arise from physiology. So
mm,
if I think there's sadness occurring, that just means, like, oh fuck, my test's a little low, or my
mm,
estrogen's a little high, or my
mm,
cortisol's a little high, right? So I think that there's some kind of uh, negative feedback associated with that. There's a physiological occurrence that's causing, or that could be causing, that emotional state to occur.
mm.
So what do? I'll do something that'll completely change the physiology, or at least influence the physiology in that aspect
Sure,
too,
sure.
right? So I don't know, because then, does that mean that I'm not dealing with it if I'm not sad, right?
No,
Am I
but
not
it's
processing it?
sure, but it's up to it's everybody's using it. They're operating from different software and hardware.
So take nurses, for example. I was
Mm,
talking to one of my buddies who's in the ER right now, during the epidemic or pandemic, and he says, it's kind of fucked up, but I'll intubate someone, and then I'll and he's working in the ER, so it's not just COVID-19 patients,
sure.
or coronavirus patients. It's also gunshot wounds. He said, I'll intubate someone, then I'll go, and I'll have to remove stitches from someone, or put stitches in someone and remove a bullet. And then another person will come in, anaphylactic shock. I'll have to give them an EpiPen. And then I'll come in, another person will die. And then, I'm eating a sandwich 10 minutes later.
Yeah.
It's like, it's really fucked up, but that's the inoculation that occurs, right? So
Mm,
I've known nurses that work in fields where people constantly die, and it's just, hey, and watching them speak about their grandmother, like, hey, grandma's got a couple of minutes left, like, why don't you guys all say your last words? And
sure,
completely stone cold about it.
sure.
Right now, is that the inoculation? Right, they've been inoculated by it. Does that mean that they haven't dealt with grandma's death? what is even dealing with the sadness? Is it just the constant exposure to it? It's like, hey, all right, whatever. It is what it is. This happens, and now we just move on.
Sure.
So I don't.
Yeah, I think it just always goes back to understanding, though. You know what I mean? It's gonna, you know, also the understanding is as a nurse, well, you know, probably the first patient that they had, again, maybe not everyone, but the first one they had, they probably got really sad. Maybe the first
Yes.
10, 50, maybe the ones that they get really close to when they die, they get, I don't know. It's just, what's the truth? What you experiencing? And just letting things happen. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like when people can't say like, oh, I'm really, really anxious before a competition, you know, like if you're anxious, all right, you know, let it happen. You're anxious, right? What can we do now rather than like, no, I'm not. Do you know what I mean?
No.
This sort of, I don't know, acceptance is can be really, really beneficial. But a lot of, again, it's not really the thing. It's like people's judgment. I shouldn't be anxious. I shouldn't be doing, you know, this shouldn't be happening to me. You know, I did everything to mean that I shouldn't be like this. You know what I mean? And now my mind's doing this and fuck, I'm really fucked up. Maybe this is not, I shouldn't be doing this shit anymore. You know what I mean? Like then.
Yeah, again, it's the perception of it.
Yeah.
So I was talking to Devin McCourty about his appearance. Like, you know, what's your favorite time? What's your favorite football memory or whatever? And he had talked about the Super Bowl. He's been to like 5 of them. And he says, I'll tell you what, the atmosphere of the Super Bowl is just different. It's cool. Like you have all these Hall of Famers on the sidelines. You have all these former players that have been in Super Bowls. Like the crowd is outrageous. Everyone, it's a cool atmosphere, right? And he explained it to his brother, and his brother's like, yeah, no, I understand. And then when he got there, he was like, oh, wow, now I get it, right? But that's a perspective. Right. That's his take on it, where I could go there and be like, oh my God, I'm performing in front of all these people. This is insane right now. And I could shrivel up. Whereas he's sitting there, is like, wow, this atmosphere is incredible. Like this is where it's at. But no wonder the guy keeps fucking going to Super Bowls.
There you go. Unique. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's all the perspective on it.
Yeah. I think it definitely plays a big role on it. Again, it's not, oh shit, sorry. It's not necessary. My microphone just shattered itself. Yeah, I don't know. Again, it's not the thing itself, it's the judgment on it. And I think, you know, that stoic approach is really, really beneficial to it. You know, like how many people, oh, you know, I don't, you know, this person's on form, they're playing their best, they're having their best season ever, they're unbeaten, you know, fuck, you know, why not like, yes. Mm-hmm. I want the best challenge. I want to come back from down, you know, I want it to be so difficult that everybody else thinks it's done. You should give up, you know, some people are like that. And you can build those traits in people too, through exposure, like, you know, as we've been saying. But again, perception is everything, man. You know, the story you're telling yourself over things, you know, and it's really, really valuable. Really, really valuable. I'm reading a good book about that called Deep Survival, by the way. It's a good book.
Who's that by?
Lawrence Gonzalez. It's like the art and science of why people survive, really, like, you know, major disasters or accidents and stuff like that. So, but
Deep Survival, huh?
Deep Survival is a good book. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the difference between someone like David Goggins. The guy has been. Did you ever read that book, Can't Hurt Me?
Yeah, it's awesome. I listened to it on audiobook.
Yeah, and it's like, and again, dude, me and McCourty talk about it all the time. We every session we spend talking about this, where some people will just get the shit kicked out of them every single day, and we'll be surrounded by drug dealers every single day, and we'll have every reason to quit every single day, and somehow they're on top. Whereas those other people, they become their environment. Like some people, everyone's a product of their environment. Yep. Some sway one way, some sway the other, some just chill in the middle. Like what? It's just so fascinating to me what factors manipulate them to succeed. Like Devin McCourty did not come. His mother filed for bankruptcy when they were in high school or when they were in college. Like filed for bankruptcy. Like could barely afford. She was on disability. She had gotten hurt. She was a psychiatric nurse. Got hurt while they were like 4 or 5 years old, and it changed the path of their entire life. They were a paycheck to paycheck family. They didn't have any money. You know, so like, and he was just surrounded. There were people on the corner selling drugs, right? Like those are those people. Like, why didn't it appeal to him to become one of those people that was selling drugs? Why wasn't that? He goes, well, it's just not what athletes do, and I wanted to be an athlete. But how did that manifest? You know, like, and all these things to just go the way that they went, for this guy to have made $60 million already in his career and have another 20 coming to him. Like the guy will make $80 million by the time his career is over, minimum. That's just on this contract. He could get another one. Who the hell knows, right? And this is a guy, both he and his brother are going to $60-70 million.
Yep.
So what changed? What was different? What was the spark? And I constantly ask him that. And I'm always trying to just get to the bottom of it. Like what changed things for you versus someone else? It's like, there's a book. I forget. I shouldn't even reference it because I don't even know what the hell it's called. But it's about 3 guys from Newark that grew up in a total shithole during a shithole of a time, and they all like kept promises to each other that they would stay hungry and constantly go to college and do. I think they all became doctors or some shit. All 3 of them are super, super successful. So what was the spark in the machine for them? Like what set it off? What motivated them, or what kept them going? It's so fascinating to me. You know, what reaches certain people, and why doesn't that reach someone else? Or how can you get that out of someone else?
Sure. Yeah, dude. I don't know, man. It's fascinating. It's fascinating because what could be the making of someone else and the reason why they succeed could be the same thing that could be the, you know, be the worst thing. And just, you know, it's interesting, bro. I don't know. Is it how much influence is there in, you know, genetics, epigenetics, different experiences, different conversations, different, you know, like they reckon that, you know, babies are already perceiving a lot of things while they're in the womb, you know, and
yes,
as soon as they come out, they're watching. So, dude, I don't know. I don't even know if he will really know.
Yeah. No,
he probably doesn't.
No,
he probably doesn't. So, but it's fascinating. I mean, we should talk to him once. I mean, I know him a bit, right? But I would love to sit there and talk to him in a formal way and ask him some questions for sure. So yeah, I don't know, bro. I don't know. It's fascinating. It's definitely the most interesting question. You know the guy that wrote Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman? You know the book, Thinking Fast and Slow.
No, now we're gonna write that down and put that on the list.
We spoke about it before. Yeah, this author, Daniel Kahneman, someone asked him in a presentation once, what's the most, you know, why do you keep doing what you do, or what do you find the most interesting thing? And he said, the reason why people do what they do is the most interesting and complex thing. Actually, fuck that. We're gonna have to cut that out because I can't remember now. It's not that. It's something else. It's so much more beautifully elegant than that, and it's really really interesting.
This is the book.
That's the book there. Yeah, Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman. Yeah.
All right.
It's a big book.
Downloading that. Yeah. It says 20 hours and 2 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Buy now with 1 credit. Boom. Done.
Yeah, dude. I got all those credits. I think I got 3 credits on my Audible, ready to fucking rinse at some point. That's good. I like Audible.
Oh, dude.
This book's good. This Deep Survival book's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Which one should I read first? That or?
A couple other good ones here too.
I don't even know what I have on my list right now that I gotta read. I finished. Oh, dude, you know what I loved? I loved Chop Wood, Carry Water.
Okay, I don't know.
Oh, it's quick, it's easy. It's like a feel good book.
Okay.
It's like 2.5 hours long. It's awesome. It really is. It's everything that I preach. It's about this dude that wants to become his brother. Something happened, disabled. They had to take care of him for a while, and then they both wanted to be like samurai archers when they were younger. So when the kid got old enough, he said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna go to Japan." And he went to Japan for 10 years and became a
Cool.
samurai archer, right?
Cool.
And all they just kept preaching to him like, "Hey, chop wood, carry water. This is the first steps of the day. Chop wood, carry water. You got to chop the wood so we could heat the place. You got to carry water so we could all drink, right?" Um, and the mantra, chop wood, carry water, is just day by day,
Yep.
do the little things every single day. And before you know it, moral of the book, do it for 10 years. It's everything I was talking about the other day.
Yeah.
Do it for
Cool.
10 years. Just
I'll get that.
stay after it every single day. Do it. Chop wood, carry water every single day, and you'll become an expert. It's not fucking rocket science. It's
No.
awesome. I loved it. I loved the book.
Cool.
I've read it like 3 times already.
Cool. 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 I'll check it. Chop wood, carry water. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get that. I'll get that. That sounds good. Talking about archers. Oh, maybe we do that after we're done recording. But or we could just cut it out. Fuck it. There's a forest close by to me, so I got bow and everything set up right, and I got a guy close by to me who's just helped me out massively with that. So he's got a buddy of his, and it's just between where the two of us live, and so it's 10 minutes for each of us to get there. He owns quite a bit of forest up on a hill in a gorge, bro. Fucking untouched woodland. He said you can go in, you can make your own 3D archery course, you can build bush camp, dude. There's waterfall there, creek, just fucking beautiful. And we was in there earlier on today. We saw a couple of foxes. There's game that walk through it. It's so untouched and it's so quiet up there. And just standing around, and we were walking around exploring it and listening to the birds. And you're just like, man, fuck, you don't really need anything, man. Don't really need anything, bro.
It's the dream. You're living the dream, bro.
Dude, it's nice. It's nice. It's good to be out in the woods, man. That's something. Some people feel really good with ocean. Some people feel really good with the mountains. Some people feel, and some people feel good with it all. I'm sure, but the woods is something. Yeah, me too. I think the same thing too. But the woods it's just awesome. It's awesome. Just makes you live right now with what you can smell, what you can hear, what you can do. The temperature's different. Everything's different. So, didn't you? Wasn't you the one that was telling me about the physiological effects of walking barefoot on the forest floor? About how it, sort of grounds the electromagnetic activity. Was that you that was telling me?
Yeah. I read about it. There's supposedly a disconnect that we'll have. Again, I've read some of the research. I'm going to misquote it. But there's supposedly a disconnect between us and our environment. And we're surrounded by the Wi-Fi. We're surrounded by all electromagnetic activity. We got our cell phones right here. I'm talking into a fucking microphone that's hooked up to the computer, that's got Wi-Fi, that's also hooked into the ground. So the concept of earthing or grounding is the earth has a natural, the earth has a charge to it. Right. And one of the ways that we can almost not recharge, but almost empty our bullshit is through contact with the ground. Now, the earth has a charge to it, but like, how conductive is dirt? Right. But dirt has water in it. Most things have moisture in it. What does our skin have? Our body's 70% water. So it's still conductive. It's still able to transfer some of that current and almost balance things out. That's why grounding and earthing are useful tools, and that's why they allegedly work. I'm saying allegedly strictly because I can't directly quote the research right now. I'll find some research and I'll send it to you.
Sure. Well, I certainly like to do it, mate, and I've heard it through quite a few different people, and even last week when I did a hike, I had my shoes off by the end, walking through the last little bit, and it's just, I don't know, it feels really quite nice.
Well, I mean, whether it works or not, right? Dude, I'm barefoot every single day, everywhere I go, and people are like, "Oh, well, you're just grounding, you're earthing. I was like, no, motherfucker, I'm standing on rubber right now. Like, that's not earthing. I just happen to like be barefoot. But if you're standing and you're walking in the ground, everything around us is living, right? So if you're standing on grass, you're interacting with your environment, right? There is still something that's occurring where we have a connection. Okay, we're all made of energy. Everything's energy. Absolutely everything is energy, and energy is just energy. That's all there is to it. It has its own frequency. That's energy. So I mean, this is made of energy. The wire, the mic, everything is made of energy. So everything that we touch, we interact with. Well, that is a natural energy. The earth is what we evolved from, right? That's something that we came from. So to be able to just interact with that energy and have that, I don't know, that vibe almost, right?
Yeah.
Like that interaction is huge.
Yeah.
So if you just merely observe how you're feeling, I mean, how aren't you going to feel better?
Sure.
I mean, just
Yeah,
being
especially
out in
when you're
nature.
outside. Yeah.
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 So I mean, whether there is that electric exchange, right? That ionic exchange, who gives a fuck? You're outside, you're barefoot, you're in nature, you're going to feel better. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, standing there barefoot, as long as it's not burning your feet or freezing your feet, standing there barefoot on the grass, eyes closed, doing some breathing, observing the wind, enjoying the sun hitting you, enjoying the raindrops even. Like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Like, enjoy it. Like, and just be there. It's so nice.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, one thing we was going on about earlier on, and it just reminded me now. There, you know, like right now we've got a lot of people suffering because of the quarantine situation. And that's because a lot of people, they don't separate from what they do and who they are. So they struggle just to be, right? So it's always about this constant go, 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 go. I need to do this. And how I compete, how I finish, how I'm perceived is either changes the sort of opinion that they have of themselves, you know, of who they are. And right now it's really interesting to see all the people that are struggling. And it's a lot of these sort of high achievers, because they're so used to putting their foot down and to just go, 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 go. And to just sit there and actually just to be for a little bit. And going to nature, man, that is as being as you can get for me.